So what comes up for me, and what kind of I want, like, the theme of today to be, or kind of invite this theme, is how do we respond? How do we respond appropriately and kindly in these times, wisely? There's a story that you might be familiar with, of a Zen story. Many of the best stories are Zen stories. And this is very simply a story of a student who comes to visit his dying teacher and wants to know, kind of the essence of the teacher's experience. He said, "What's the fruit of the teaching of your entire lifetime?" And the dying teacher replies, "An appropriate response. An appropriate response. What's the fruit of the teachings of your lifetime?" And the response is an appropriate response. And I think this is what we're called on at any time to investigate, to inquire into. What is an appropriate response? What is a response to what we're experiencing? We begin where we are with our experience as it is, and take in all that we're bringing in through our senses and through our mind, connecting with the world around us, the situation, the experience we're in the middle of, and say, what is this time, what does this moment call me to? What response does it call me to? What is it that I can do to help alleviate suffering? Might be my own suffering, might be suffering of loved ones or friends. It might be the larger suffering of the world. And so what I'd like to do is to kind of reflect on that. But before doing that, I'd like us to kind of just take our initial period of meditation. We have an opening meditation of around 15 minutes to help us kind of arrive and ground ourselves here, opening to whatever it is we're experiencing, starting where we are, feeling what we're feeling, meeting our experiences with as much kindness and care as we can. And after that, to share a few more words of reflection, and then take an opportunity for us to share together, which I think can be a very rich way of connecting with each other and being here together in community. We'll break into some smaller groups using the wonders of modern technology. And then we'll have a little bit more sharing in the group as a whole. Emily will lead us in some movement, and then we'll move into the final meditation together. And so this is kind of the very simple form of our time together. So with that just initial question of what is an appropriate response, I'd invite us now to just find a posture that's comfortable, relaxed, at ease. So just begin by taking your seat. It may be just sitting where you already are and making some adjustments in your posture so that your shoulders are relaxed, your chest is open, you can breathe easily. Your hands are comfortably in your lap or on your knees or by your sides, whatever feels relaxing, comfortable. And if you like, you can gently let your eyes close and let your attention come inward. invite your attention to drop down into the body, out of the thinking mode where we spend a lot of our time. Just come down into feeling your body, feeling your body on the seat or the cushion or whatever you're in contact with, feeling the weight, the contact, maybe the warmth or the coolness. You might feel the sensations in the buttocks, the thighs, as the weight of the body presses down. Sensations of your feet in contact with the floor. You might consciously put aside thoughts of the future, thoughts of the past, and let yourself be as fully here as you can be. Feeling your body, feeling yourself in the space where you are. Connecting with your breathing, breathing in, breathing out. You might find it helpful to just deepen your breath for a few breaths. Take a nice full deep in breath and release and relax on the out breath. Filling the chest, filling the lungs as you breathe in, and relaxing, letting go as you breathe out. You might invite in a quality of calm as you breathe in. Calm as you breathe in, calm as you breathe out. Just inviting calm into the body and the mind. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. Letting these deeper breaths help you settle into being here, help you step out of the more busy, vigilant doing mode and just relax into being here. Nowhere to get to, nowhere to go, just to be here now. And in your own time, just letting the breath come back into its natural rhythm. In breath and the out breath. And you might join the sense of greater ease, perhaps, of the deeper breaths with a smile. Perhaps inviting a smile to the corners of your eyes and the corners of your mouth. Bringing to mind, if it's helpful, a loved one or somebody who easily makes you feel happy, relaxed, at ease, joyful. And letting the smile help you relax too into this moment, just being here. letting the smile come down into the body, into the heart area. Letting the smile be an expression of how you wish to meet whatever comes up. See if you can meet what's here with the attitude of a smile, with the expression of a smile. And at any time being able to come back to take one or two deeper breaths to relax back if we're feeling stressed or tense or busy or anxious. And that we can invite a smile to encourage that sense of ease, of calm. And as let your attention come inward, come to the body, come to just what you're aware of as a whole right now. Just what are you noticing? See if you can meet whatever is coming up, whatever's present with kindness, with acceptance. Welcoming the guests in Rumi's terms, Rumi's poem. Whatever's here. As he says, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. He says, the dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. He says, be grateful for whatever comes, as each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So our guests, whatever emotions or mind states or experiences come up for us, can be the doorway, the gateway, if you like, to greater freedom, to insight, to letting go. Meeting whatever's coming up for you with a receptive awareness, kind attention. We can see this practice as one of stepping into a space of awareness, creating a space to be with whatever's here wholeheartedly, with acceptance and kindness. And out of that, being here, willingness to be with our experience, can come insight, can come clarity that can help us perhaps to know what an appropriate response is, what we need to do, what we need to say, how we might meet our experience. Martha Postlethwaite says, "Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is yours alone to sing falls into your open, cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue." So stepping into this space, creating a clearing in the dense forest of our lives. And if it's helpful, using the breath as a focus for attention, or another focus, sound or bodily feelings, to help ground us here in this moment. And then to come back when we notice the mind has moved off into stories or plans or memories or daydreams. Each time we wake up out of our thoughts and our stories, and gently and kindly come back to the breath, come back to the body, come back to this moment. Each time we do this, we're training our minds. We're inclining our minds. We're creating the conditions that for the future, there's more of an inclination to to wake up and come back, rather than staying lost in, in daydreams and stories, plans, memories, problem solving. All those things that it's helpful to do, but not to be doing the vast majority of the time, not to be spend our lives absent from our experience. Just gently and kindly coming back. Finish with this poem from Mary Oliver. The poem is Angels. You might see an angel anytime and anywhere. Of course, you have to open your eyes to a kind of second level, but it's not really hard. The whole business of what's reality and what isn't has never been solved and probably never will be. So I don't care to be too definite about anything. I have a lot of edges called perhaps, and almost nothing you can call certainty. For myself, but not for other people. That's a place you just can't get into, not entirely anyway, other people's heads. I'll just leave you with this. I don't care how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. It's enough to know that for some people they exist and that they dance. It's enough to know that for some people they exist and that they dance. So welcome, welcome back, and welcome to anyone who may have joined us during the meditation. What I'd like to do just for a few more minutes is to continue the reflection on an appropriate response. An appropriate response is always appropriate to the circumstances and to the conditions. So what may be appropriate for me may not be appropriate for you. And what may be appropriate for me today may not be what is appropriate for me tomorrow or yesterday. It always depends on the conditions, the circumstances, the really the totality of really everything that we bring to this moment or or any moment. And so in a time like this, and at a time like this, where we're in the middle of this pandemic with the kind of unprecedented changes and the magnitude of the suffering in the country and around the world, arising out of the virus and the measures taken to limit its spread. I think it's an important question for each of us to ask ourselves, what is what is an appropriate response for me, for me at this time? What is a way that I can best express, the depth of my caring and compassion? What is the way that I can best respond to the suffering, around? It could be my own, could be loved ones, could be in the wider world. And I've been thinking about this for myself, and I'd invite, I'm sure many of you have as well, and I'd invite you to kind of reflect on this. I think I'm particularly drawn to the question just by virtue of the fact that our experiences are so different, and that the burdens of the time that we're living in are not equally shared by all of us. And so it feels really important for those who are in a position of some more comfort, or more privilege, you might say, can do whatever we can, if we're in that position, to so that we really are in a more genuine way all in this together, rather than some of us being, and not talking about myself right now necessarily, but in the penthouse suites, and others are in the room just shoveling the coal in the furnaces, and and all the different ways in which our experiences, and our roles and our contributions can be very different. So I think I'm drawn to thinking about it in terms of our individual responses. When I think, well, what can I do? In immediate sense, I'm drawn to the people around me who I see and know are experiencing loss, where even if whatever things that I can do may make a difference. It might just be the person that cuts my hair who isn't able to work in this period, or somebody who might be doing landscaping, or coming to clean a house that you could pay, even if you're not getting the service in this period. And also just the reaching out to those who are suffering, who are maybe alone, and not connected perhaps to family or to friends, and those kind of ways in which we can really reach out and express our care and concern, and our connection and our compassion. I'm also very aware that there are some things that really we can't do on our own, where our actions really have to be part of a collective response. And in this time, I think we're seeing here in the US and around the world how the response of government is critical for saving lives, getting equipment where it's needed, testing where it's needed, marshalling resources, and the costs of not doing that, or not doing it adequately. And also in terms of the measures that are taken or are not taken to support those who are suffering most, in terms of some of the things that are happening now, providing income, or some resources to those who've lost jobs or whose businesses may otherwise go under. So in this time, in this election year, being conscious of this, and I certainly inviting myself, and also inviting you, if this speaks to you, to really see our practice as very much incorporating this collective collective response, or what we do together and what we do as citizens, and how we engage to ensure that we have a government that really meets the needs of the people in a genuine, in really genuine and encompassing ways. I was just reading, just having a glance through the review section of today's New York Times, and I was struck by this quote that was captured from one piece. "We need leaders fit to handle the crises we face, instead of hoping for problems small enough to fit the leaders we have. We need leaders fit to handle the crises we face, instead of hoping for problems small enough to fit the leaders we have." So, I'm conscious we have forums where we can get more deeply into questions of engagement in politics, and, we all know how that can kind of create divisions among us. I think this, and you might think something different. But so I'm wanting to kind of engage with it on the level of the teachings and the practices, and kind of what they call on us, what they point towards in terms of an appropriate response. And I'm aware that we're having national elections in 200 days, 198 to be precise, where major decisions will be made, as we know. And some commentators, historians who I have a lot of respect for, talk about this election as the most important, the most consequential election since 1864, the Civil War. We might argue about that, but certainly I think we're all agreed how important this year is, and these elections are, in a variety of ways. And so for myself, in terms of when I ask the question, what is an appropriate response, on this more kind of collective level, in terms of the role as a member of the society and a citizen, my commitment is to do everything I can to elect a leadership that can bring people together and not divide us from each other, because we are in this together in the biggest picture. We can't solve the problems of climate change and the major questions of the country and our world if we are fundamentally divided from each other. That doesn't mean we don't have different views. Obviously we will, but that we have a way of working those out. So, and a government that really is committed to working for the well-being of all. A government that really meets the needs of all the people, particularly in this time of crisis, where people are suffering in extreme ways. We've all seen, I'm sure, on the news of the food banks, many parts of the country, all over the country really, with lines of cars going back miles and miles, and when people are on their feet, going back blocks and blocks and blocks of people needing food, to be given, to receive food in order to be able to feed their families. We need responses that a government that responds to the needs of all the people in this time. And we need a government that really is committed to repairing the harms that have been caused in recent years, including those harms that go back not just a few years, but go back centuries, including the legacies of racism and other forms of exclusion. We need a government that's committed to expanding democracy, that so that elections are really, everybody is able to vote in the easiest ways possible, and the government that's committed to protect the rule of law and address climate change. So when I think of this year that we're living in, without getting, political in quotes, in a narrow way, I feel, that I feel pulled towards doing everything I possibly can. So what would that look like? And I'm not going to get into that right now because, hopefully we'll do that in the period ahead, as we, have forums to have those discussions in more depth. But what I want to say today here is that I think our practice, the practice is of awareness and compassion and equanimity. The practice is of finding an end to suffering, seeking an end to suffering, finding the path to the end of suffering. That these teachings and practices call on us to include all of this in our reflection, in our investigation, in our questioning of what is it that I can do? Because it's all about alleviating suffering. Alleviating suffering isn't just about, what I can do when I sit down on my cushion and work with my emotions and, let my anger or my fear come and go. That's obviously where we start, and it really is at the core of our practice. But also to look at the suffering in the broadest sense, where people are hurting, where people are feeling exclusion. What can we do to bring compassion into the world in these broader ways? So I raise it here not to say, you should do this or I should do that, but just to invite that reflection today, particularly in this, as we are right in the middle of this, of this unprecedented time that we're living in. So what I'd like to invite us to do, and I think, Nick, you're going to help us to do this, is to let me know if we're able to break into smaller groups and share some reflections about how each of us is meeting these times and what you feel is an appropriate response. What is a response for you to meet whatever's coming up for you, and how you're viewing and visioning yourself and where we are right now. Can I just check with Nick if we're able to do that?
Good to go. Yep, I'll start everybody in their little room.
So how am I meeting these times, and what's an appropriate response? just to be together with, maybe 2 or 3 other people. Yeah, just looking around, seeing a lot of thumbs. They don't have a downward thumb, so you'd have to do that in person. Yeah, it was, for myself, it's very, very powerful just to hear from a couple of other folks, and speaking of just the personal ways in which they were drawn to, you know, to make masks or reach out to loved ones, or people who are in need, and very, very powerful and very, very poignant. I wanted to just say that, and please feel free to put any reactions in the chat box. I wanted to say that one of the ways in which, just in a very practical way, I and some friends and colleagues are choosing to respond in the kind of more collective way, living in an area where the outcome of the elections in November is not very much in doubt. But in certain parts of the country, things are much more on a kind of a razor's edge, much more pivotal places, that I'm going to be supporting efforts in the state of Wisconsin, grassroots efforts, supporting those financially, in other ways, to encourage other people to get involved, to ensure that people both have the right to vote, but and particularly that they get out to vote, and that we get a government that has the qualities, really, and the compassion and the effectiveness to meet the challenges of the time that we're in. And Julie posted, I think, that she's going to Wisconsin, going home to Wisconsin to campaign, if that's possible. So thank you, Julie. What I'd like to do, just given time, I'd like to just take maybe 2 or 3 people who, if you'd like to share, or if you have questions. Karen in Washington, D.C. raised your hand. So Karen?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Hugh. I know I have this question, and I think you're the only one who can answer it. So the question is kind of like how to react more mindfully. So I am a crisis responder. So I have to go to the hospital. So in the past, doing these practices, when I'm challenged with something like very stressful, like for example, immigration, I kind of surrender, like, okay, well, maybe this will happen, and just accept the reality. But right now, going to the hospital, the anticipation of going to the hospital is dreading, and it's more like accepting the realities, accepting that I might die. So I think the challenge of the state of mind, even if I try to stay present, is more challenging than before. And I was wondering if mindfully, how could do you have any tools for crisis responder like me that have to go to the hospital and do that type of thing?
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for sharing that. And firstly, just to recognize how what a weight that is, and how what a challenge and difficult situation that is, and to really allow yourself to take that in, and maybe to invite all of us to take that reality in, because many of us, most of us, are not in that situation. We're not in that situation where we're, our work calls on us to be, to put ourselves in danger. And we know from everything we're seeing and hearing that many, many people, in the healthcare field are having to, and choosing to put themselves in that situation. And so for you, Karen, to really hold that with kindness, and if you can feel the caring and the kindness of everybody here, and everybody um, who respects and honors where you and others like you, the situation that you're in. What I would ask, Karen, is, what have you found helpful? What have you been able to do in your practice, recognizing as you do that this is a situation that is a dangerous one, but that you have to want to and have to go into. How have you been holding that, and how have you been meeting that situation for yourself?
So the first thing that I do is, if I feel sad or fearful, I actually let it cry, like, because I have like 15 minutes or 20 minutes before going to the hospital, and I allow that sadness to get it out, like the fear of I might die. Like, I'm not being harsh with myself, like, or hold it, or I try to even, like, physically give me hugs, like, this is okay, it's okay to feel this way. But it does, once I enter to the hospital, it's a completely different world. You forget that. So I'm present. But before that, the only thing that has been helpful is to cry, to hug. And when I do daily meditations, the daily meditations usually let my body, like, release that tension, that fear that something might have happened, but it didn't.
Yeah.
That's what has been helpful so far.
Do you have a way of kind of reaching out to something or someone that's kind of larger than you? Sometimes it can be helpful to, if it's if it's a Buddha, or or Kuan Yin, or some other spiritual being, or somebody in your life. Might, for some it might be a parent or a grandparent, somebody who you can kind of reflect on, and or think about, your ancestors and those who've struggled through very painful and difficult times in the past. Is there some support that you can find in that way? That's just another question, Karen.
Yeah, I think sometimes I've done it and it's helpful. Yeah, it's
And, yeah. And a practice, I think, that's really can be powerful. And I don't know if how much you take advantage of this practice, is of self-compassion, consciously inviting compassion to yourself, because you're recognizing that in this situation I'm suffering. This is a painful situation, and inviting kindness to yourself. Just that simple gesture, I know you're familiar with, of if you're right now, you might do it, of just putting your hand on your heart, maybe a hand on your belly, and just connecting with this life, connecting with perhaps the fear, or the difficulties, the difficult thoughts that come up for you. And just breathe in just a wish of kindness to yourself. Could be, may I be happy, may I be safe. We really need to feel safe, and just wishing that, may I be safe. May I be kind to myself. May I accept this situation. May I find the strength to accept how things are, the situation as it is. And also just feeling that, knowing, recognizing that you're not alone in this situation, that many, many others are experiencing, similar realities of going into harm's way, going into fearing that they may get sick themselves, and others are suffering in other ways. And so feeling yourself part of this larger field of suffering and of compassion for that suffering, this common humanity that we're a part of. I think that is also can be very powerful practice. I think Tara Brach's book of Radical Compassion is a very powerful support, and some of the practices, I know you're familiar with the RAIN practices, I think can be very, very helpful. And just bringing that kind awareness as we do to our experience. And obviously, there's a limit to how much we can get into it further here, but just invite you to, if it'd be helpful to talk anytime, I'd be more than happy to find a time to connect in the coming days. But I hope this is helpful, at least to some initial reflections, Karen.
Thank you so much, Hugh. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. I'm conscious of the time, so what I think I will invite Emily to lead us in just some coming into our bodies. Emily, are you ready to do that?
I am. So if everyone would like to stand up and reach up above, gather the energy of the sky and the sunshine and the moon and sun, and bring that energy to your heart. And gather the energy of all of us together, our presence, our compassion, our kindness, our joys, and bring that to your heart. And gather the energy of the earth, that which nourishes us, providing vital nutrients, and bring that to your heart. And now with collective energy, bring your arms into cactus arms. And we'll move 3 times to the right, breathing in. Exhale, right, and center, and right, and center, and right, and center. Breathing in. Exhale, left, and center, left, and center, and left, and center. Allow your arms to drop down and do the dance that you imagine an angel would do if you could dance on a head of a pin, hugging yourself. And release and raise your hands to grasp your right wrist. Breathing in, exhale to the left, breathing in to the right side of your rib cage. Exhale to center, change wrists, and lean to the right. Breathing into the left side of your rib cage. And exhale to center, lower those arms with just wonderful joy. And now, clasp your hands behind your waist and extend your elbows, opening up your chest, breathing in. Exhale, bring your hands back to your waist. One last time. Lengthen those elbows, opening up your chest, and hands back to the waist. Last movement, hands above your knees. Take a nice leisurely forward bend. The head drops, your back dropping down to wherever you may reach. No effort in this forward bend, just dropping and relaxing. Take a deep inhale. Exhale, sigh. Breathing here. And bring your hands back above your knees. Press on your feet. Place your hands at heart center, rising up, releasing to the sky, releasing to all of you here and the earth. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Emily. That's lovely. Lovely to get into our bodies, come back, feel ourselves here in our bodies. Thank you. So we'll come back for a little bit shorter final meditation. To take some moments to settle, find a comfortable posture again. Feeling your body on the chair or the cushion, whatever you're sitting on or lying on. Checking in with your body, just noticing how it is. Maybe the heart's beating a little faster now after the movement. Maybe there's parts of our body that we're conscious of that we weren't so conscious of before because we've stretched them. So letting the attention come into the body. Closing your eyes if that's comfortable, letting your attention come inward. Be taking a couple of deeper breaths to just help settle, arrive again. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. And letting the attention rest in the body, in the feelings, the sensations of the body. Dropping down out of thinking, out of the stories in our minds, and just feeling your feet on the floor, feeling your buttocks, your thighs in contact with what you're sitting on, feeling your hands, feeling your hands from the inside, feeling your breath, the chest, the belly expanding, contracting. And bringing a kind, caring attention to whatever's present for you, whatever's coming up. Compassionate curiosity, kind interest in what's here right now. Recognizing whatever is present and allowing it to be just as it is, letting it come, letting it be, and letting it go. Everything just arising, staying for a while, and then passing in its own time, so that we don't need to choose something. I like this, I want to keep it. I don't like that, I want to get rid of it. But rather bringing a kind attention to whatever is here. What happens when we don't struggle with our experience? What happens when we say yes to what's here? Just letting the breath be a way of grounding your attention here in the present, just aware of breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. And any time, just letting the attention come back when you notice that you're caught up in a story or plans, memories, daydreams. Just gently and kindly to incline the mind back. Can this moment be a moment of peace, a moment of freedom? Here and now. Can we end the struggle with life and with our experience? And open to this moment just as it is. And out of this opening can come wise action, wise engagement that doesn't come from a narrow and contracted place. It doesn't have to come from a place of clinging and tightness, but can come from kindness and care. And at the same time, it can be clear, it can be decisive, it can be fierce. It can be appropriate to what's needed, but not from a place of division or being caught up in fear, but rather the willingness to open to our fear and still move forward to do what we need to do. So in these final few minutes, perhaps inviting a breathing in of kindness and compassion to yourself. Kindness towards all the ways in which you might be struggling right now. Maybe putting a hand on your heart, on your belly. Just caring about the difficulties, the challenges. Breathing in kindness, breathing in compassion. And then on the out breath, breathing out compassion for those who are suffering. It might be an individual in our lives, it might be a group of people, it might be all of those who are suffering in these times, here and around the world. Breathing out, just a wish for well-being, a wish that the suffering be alleviated. Breathing in compassion, breathing out compassion. This is on Fear by Khalil Gibran. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled, from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. It's taking a moment to appreciate your own effort, your practice. You're taking the time this morning to be present with what's here and appreciating everyone else who's here together in all of our different spaces and places. Perhaps sending a wish of loving kindness out to all of us here together and out into the world, to everyone, to all beings, wishing that all be free of suffering, that all find ease and find peace and freedom, that all be free from suffering. So thank you all for your presence today and all for your practice. Take a couple of minutes to just share some final words, announcements. Want to let you know or remind you that next Saturday I have a morning retreat, 9:30 to 1, here online in this space, bringing practicing mindfulness and compassion in these anxious times. So if you'd like a slightly longer period of practice together, we'll be doing the practices we do here, and the sharing stories and poems and reflections and sharing together. So that's next Saturday. And Tuesday, I have an extra class from 7 to 8. You can find that on the IMCW website. And just a reminder, very familiar with all those who come on a regular basis, that there isn't any charge for the class, any specific costs, but you're invited, if you can, according to your circumstances, give dana or generosity to support, in this case me, in terms of sharing the teachings, and in a broader sense the passing on of these teachings that have come down to us through 2,500 years, and kind of passing them down through the decades and the centuries and the generations. So thank you for your support in that way. And I think, Pat, you were going to put up the link to or information on that. Yes, thank you, Pat, for doing that in the chat section. And Pat or Sharon, would you like to share a few highlights of what's coming up in the days ahead?
I'll give right of first response to Sharon.
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, I just posted the links to the Center for Mindful Living and IMCW websites, and they have all the information on the offerings. I think when we were in a position to have to close the center, the appropriate response that a lot of us felt was to try to make as much of the in-person offerings as possible available on Zoom. And so we have meditations every weekday morning at 7:30 a.m. and then many afternoons at 5:30 or 6:30. And there's many other events each month like that kind of are at the intersection of mindfulness and other topics like art or books or climate or creativity or films and Latin culture and men's sharing, recovery, sister bonding, social engagement, Spanish language, storytelling, Sutta study, big and lifestyle, and wisdom sharing. If any of that sounds like it would be helpful to you in these times, and you'd like to be on our email list or receive a newsletter, you can either register on the website, or you can send a private chat to Sharon or me with your email address, and we'll make sure that we add you to it. And I think I'm not sure, but I think we're going to leave the Zoom room open for anybody that would like to share lunch with the community. Feel free to take a break and make yourself something to bring and come on back. Like I said, the room will be open. So I think that's everything.